What's up everyone, Man here, and we've got another Modern Meta Breakdown video. But before we jump into this week's episode focusing on Izzet Tempo, we're going to do a little bit of kind of breakdown of what's been going on the channel, what's been going on with kind of the stuff that I've been doing outside of YouTube here. I've been able to jump in and play a couple of awesome Commander games with a couple of different streams over the last couple of weeks / months. So if you guys have been interested and wanted to see some of the Commander game before it gets posted up on the channel, if you guys are following on Twitter, and that's of course at the real Man, you guys can kind of find out when I'll be going live with a bunch of cool people playing on their channels. Not streaming currently at this point in time, just focusing more on the YouTube content, but you will be able to see me be able to jump in and hang out with other people on stream. But we're going to keep going through and doing our Modern Meta Breakdown stuff. We're also going to be doing kind of a monthly Commander game that will be posted up on the channel for everyone to enjoy. But without further ado, let's jump into our discussion about Izzet Tempo. All right, so if this is your first time tuning in and watching our Modern Meta Breakdown video, what we do is basically we go through, do a breakdown discussion about the creatures, the spells, all the basic stuff that people are playing, why they're playing them, what sort of synergies might exist, how you might kind of deal with these types of decks, what to expect when you're battling against these decks, how sideboards kind of work, that sort of stuff. Now, we've been focusing a lot more this last month or two on Modern Horizons stuff because Modern Horizons 2 has had a huge impact on the Modern scene. A lot of players are getting back into Modern or getting into Modern for the first time because of how new and exciting things are. There's been a huge influx in powerful cards overall, not just like what we see here in this list. You can see scrolling above me is a couple of those powerful cards that are in this list here. Now, the tempo list has adjusted and tweaked and changed. It's kind of was a little bit more prowessy before. It's kind of been a little bit more tempo-y here and there, and it's kind of ebbed and flowed as things have gone. But with this set of new cards for Modern Horizons 2, the deck is more powerful than ever, and we're seeing just kind of how powerful it is with some of these sweet creatures that have been added into the list. And you can see kind of we're looking across this list. This is the paper version of it with our price tags, and of course our little monkey friend here is the most expensive creature in our list. You want a play set of it, which the list is showing that, hey, that makes a huge difference in it. It's going to be costing you over $300. And it's even more on Magic Online because of the weird limiting with ability to get access to those cards. It's a whole thing. So let's kind of dive into the creature list and talk about the spells. We're going to go through kind of breakdowns of different things. So the easy stuff, the one drops, the stuff that you're hoping to hit, of course, is our little monkey friend here. So he's got that dash ability, right? So that you can pay the 2, it returns to your hand at the after combat kind of thing. So it's just, hey, I'll poke in, come back, protect it. I don't have to worry about it sticking around and dying. Otherwise, if you have him out, right, he costs 1. Next turn you can be able to attack with him, of course, because he does not have haste. So Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. He's a 2/1, cost 1 for a monkey pirate here. He is legendary, so keep that in mind. Now when he deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token, and then you exile the top card of that player's library. Until the end of turn, you can cast that card. So you're slowly chipping away at the resources of your opponent that they might need later on in the game. Right? Could be the removal spells that they might have to try to deal with your creatures, because this list is only running 14, but the 14 that are in this list are extremely powerful. So you can start chipping away at the resources that they need. Could be lands that they need, depending on how things are going. And hey, it's a 2/1, it's scary, right? If you're going to have to be committing resources to dealing with this monkey, then that means you're having less resources to deal with the scarier stuff later on. So here's one of our 1-drops. The next 1-drop is, of course, our Dragon's Rage Channeler. It's a 1/1, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get to Surveil 1, which is, of course, that return to Ravnica. You know, when the third time we went back to Ravnica, Surveil came out as a mechanic for those Dimir players out there. This guy. So whenever you cast that non-creature spell, Surveil 1, so you look at the top card of your library, and you could choose to keep that on top or put it into your graveyard. The graveyard does matter quite a lot with this tempo list because this creature does have Delirium. So when you have 4 or more creature types, then you get to increase the attack power of our Dragon Rage here. So he does become a 3/3, has flying, and attacks each combat if able. So guaranteed swinging in 3 damage every single turn, pretty much with this guy. Now turn 1, if you're dropping him down, not really worried about it, right? It's that follow up after that. How quickly can you dump stuff into your graveyard to be able to get that delirium? Very, very quickly, right? You've got fetch lands, so there's one right there. You have access to artifacts, Mishra's Bauble. We've got instants, sorceries, creatures. So easily 5 different options to easily fill up our graveyard. Plus, you know, we have ways to be able to speed up our progression into the getting things to the graveyard with that surveil mechanic that we talked about here. So really powerful, synergizes very well with the deck and the strategies that we're going to be going with. So Dragon Rage Chandler is also seeing play in other lists. You're going to kind of see this delirium and more people playing Mishra's Bauble. Mishra's Bauble is going back up in price again. So just kind of be aware of how things are progressing with the modern scene because of that. Now let's get to our 2 creatures that are in the list that are kind of reactionary. We need those a little bit later on, and that's of course our Brazen Borrower and our Snapcaster Mage. This is kind of take advantage of how things are going, that kind of more tempo-y, flash something back from my graveyard, cast it again, seems great. Who doesn't like Snapcaster, right? We like that kind of ability to flash something back. Plus it's got a body on it, so it seems pretty powerful. You've seen it before in all the control lists back in the day. It's, you know, it's nothing out of the ordinary with Snapcaster. One of in this list. Brazen Borrower, of course, you've seen him around as well, especially when we talked about some of our Living End type strategies and the shift that Living End took over the kind of course of 2021. If you guys have missed that video, you can check it out because we do discuss the reasons for all the changes to that deck. But it's got that bounce effect, and it's a 3/1 body that can come in, flash, flying, get in there again, just kind of pushing for damage here. Now, the really big powerhouse of the deck, our Murktide Reagent here. It's a dragon, it's a 3/3. Now you look at that cost, which you can't really see over that way, but you can see it scrolling over here, right? It costs 7, but it has that delve mechanic. So you can say, I'm going to be exiling cards from my graveyard, which we've already saw that Dragon Rage Channeler is throwing things into my graveyard. I have things like Mishra's Bauble, as well as other instants and sorceries that will let me get things into my graveyard, which we'll get to soon. All right, we'll talk about the fuel soon. But this is the main payout thing. Back in the day, some of the tempo lists ran things like Bedlam Reveler and stuff like that to try to help out, but really, this is the power level that we want to be at with this list, right? It's flying, it's a 3/3. When he enters the battlefield, he gets a +1/+1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery card that you exiled with it. So if your graveyard, which right now we have 24 spells, if you have a bunch of those in your graveyard, you can just say, all right, well, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of these, and now my reagent here is going to be even bigger, right? If I get rid of 5 spells to be delving away, 5 instants and sorceries, he's an 8/8, which is really hard to answer in Modern, right? Even with things like Dismember, -5/-5, that's still not enough to be able to get rid of him. So keep that in mind. Whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, put a +1 counter on him as well. He is not legendary, so you can be able to cast more than one and then just keep building up your team around him, right? It's a really cool card. I like this idea of having this kind of big payout, big scary dragon to kind of kill people off with, right? So that's kind of our creature package. You notice this delirium idea, or this fuel in my graveyard, is the main focus of the Izzet tempo deck, right? We want our dragon to have it. Murktide needs it. Our channeler needs it. And hey, we've got other things like our Snapcaster to kind of rely on that. So how we're getting there, we've kind of got a mix of our spells, right? And that's kind of the nice fun of tempo. It's that sort of, all right, I'm going to get a lot of card advantage here and be able to get some great payout from that. Kind of in this early mid stage is the main focus of the tempo deck, right? I'm not worried about the super late game because you're going to be dead before then. It's not going to be as mid-rangey as like a Jund list. It's going to be a little bit more fast than that. So we've got these kind of speed things up, right? A playset of Serum Visions in here, draw a card, scry 2. We're going to get that fuel again, right? That's the couple cards that we're going to initially talk about, how we're going to fuel our strategy. So turn 1, you're hoping to be able to cast Serum Vision. You're hoping to be casting a Channeler. Even your Ragavan, I mean, you could dash early on too, so keep that in mind. Turn 2. Thought Scour is also, you're going to be choosing to have yourself mill 2 cards here. Very similar to the Grixis Death Shadow list of old, where you're like, I need fuel in my graveyard that I'm going to use to be casting this Gurmag Angler. Well, this fuel that I'm doing is going to be using for my Murktide. It's going to be used to make my Rage Channeler even bigger, right? So that's kind of our thought with this Thought Scour. So I'm going to mill 2, and then I'm going to draw a card. So that guarantees 3 cards in my graveyard, right? So that's kind of really good for this. We've also got our Expressive Iteration here, which is a newer card from Strixhaven. So you look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, one of them into the bottom of your library, and then exile one of them. You can play the exiled card this turn. With so many of these 1-cost instants and sorceries, we're going to have a good chance to be able to hit something that we want, right? That's the nice thing about this tempo list. You see it's very low to the ground in converted mana cost, so we're going to kind of get that fuel out, get the speed going that makes the tempo list so scary. All right, so here's our fuel that we were referring to. You also got the Mishra's Baubles also in that fuel category, right? Cost 0, get it out early. I can sack it, look at my top card, your top card, doesn't matter. I'm drawing a card off of it, replaces itself, and it works towards that Delirium and fuel for a Murktide. So fills in lots of duties in this list, and kind of one of the reasons why it's going up in price. So be aware of that. Then we've got our burn spells and our kind of counter spells, right? Along with this, a well-rounded package that I need in this list. So let's talk about our burn spells that we've got. We've got Lightning Bolt in here, which is a multi-purpose tool to not only kill creatures, but to burn face. When we're kind of going for that sort of aggro plan, I'm coming at you, we can use it just straight face. Because we have access to Unholy Heat, another one of our kind of newer spells that also cares about Delirium. So just like our Dragon's Rage Channeler here. So normally deals 2 damage to a creature or player, but since we're going to have Delirium, it's going to be dealing 6 damage instead. So keep that in mind. So that's kind of our answer to pretty much most creatures as well as planeswalkers in Modern. Like we talked about previously, Dismember used to be the kind of go-to removal spell. -5 was kind of where you want it to be. Now, -5 isn't as effective when you have a Murktide that's an 8/8. Right? So keep that in mind when you're going through how you're removing stuff. Now we've got access to essentially 2 counter spells, really. Counter spell, there's 3 of in this. Some people running 4 of and not running the Archmage, but it's mix and match, right? You have that flexibility to be able to adjust it. Counter spell being in Modern is great. It fits very well with kind of what people want to do. So I have no problem with that being in Modern. And then our Archmage Charm. This is that triple duty for the list. I can draw cards off of it, more fuel, keep that tempo strategy going. I can counter a spell if need be, if I'm kind of stuck in that position where I'm waiting for more fuel into my graveyard to be able to cast my Murktide, and I'm just going to play that delay game, right? That's kind of, counter spells in this list are a delay game / protection game. You kind of have to adjust your gameplay based on what matchup you're in. And then of course you can gain control of target non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. There are plenty of things in Modern that have converted mana cost 1 or less. We can look at our list in particular, right? Dragon Rage Channeler, our Ragavan is in here. You have things like Death Shadow, and we're referring to things like Hammer Time, right? We can steal a hammer if we really wanted to because it says permanent and not just creature. So Just has to be non-land. So that's kind of our basic rundown of lists, right? Tempo strategy. I'm going to be getting lots of card advantage. I'm using that card advantage for fuel for my creatures to kind of close out the game. I've got burn spells that can go towards face as well as towards creatures. It's very fast, very low to the ground, converted mana cost, and then you have big payout cards from it. There's only 18 lands in the list. You have ways to get lands into your graveyards with fetch lands, with our Thought Scours, even our Fiery Izzet here that can be able to sacrifice and draw cards. So it's very well positioned as people are trying to find the best spot to be in for Modern, right? And aggro strategies have always been powerful in the right kind of meta. So keep that in mind as you kind of are getting into Modern or seeing how things go. It's the sideboard that we have here is very normal to see, right? It's a lot of one-ofs, a few two-ofs here and there, but it's kind of like, I want to be doing the same strategies that I was doing in the main board, but I need more silver bullet specific answers for specific matchups, right? So things like our Aether Gust. Choose target spell or permanent that's red or green, and that player puts it on top of their library. Okay, very specific here. A Braid. Okay, I can deal 3 damage to a creature, but I also have the option to destroy artifacts, right? Specific on how we're doing it. Hurkyl's Recall, bouncing artifacts, Engineer Explosive, destroying things. We've got more counter spells to spell. Flusterstorm is here. It has that storm mechanic. Again, Modern is shifting into this Legacy Light, and there's things like this that kind of give that indication. Another Archmage's Charm in here. 2 Blood Moons, Force of Negation, Kozilek's Return. So counterspell, removal spell, that's our answers in our sideboard. In this tempo strategy, that's what you expect to see to help you towards your game plan, right? Counterspell and removal is delay, 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 protect, protect, protect. I'm protecting my creatures with my counterspells. I'm delaying you from comboing off or doing whatever strategy you want to do. I also am killing off your creatures to protect my life total so I can be able to kill you with my Scary Dragon, right? And it's just fueling my graveyard that I will then use for my Dragon Rage Channeler, away at your deck with Ragavan or Nimble Pilferer. I'm never going to say that right, guys. So that's our breakdown for the list. I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing more and more discussion of how Modern has been kind of shaken up from Modern Horizons 2. We're going to keep bouncing around and showcasing a list for you guys, as well as other decks in Modern. If there's specific decks that you want to see, leave a comment down below. Let me know. We're going to keep bouncing around. We have showcased quite a bit overall, so make sure you guys are chatting around. Let me know what you guys want to see. But that's going to be it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, and I'll see you guys next game. Hey everyone, Nanman here. I'm a StarCraft 2 and Magic the Gathering content maker and commentator. Thanks for tuning in and watching, guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and check the description for more information about other content that I'm doing. I've also got a new podcast, Nanman's Nerd Corner, which you guys can find out on Spotify or iTunes. It's got a bunch of Magic content as well as other stuff. Thanks for tuning in and watching, and I'll see you guys next game.